go right into the message, don't I? I do. All right, but I'm kind of where I want to be anyhow. And I don't remember what podcast I heard it on or what stand-up comedian did this, but he was talking about a gentleman on a subway, homeless guy, very obviously hadn't bathed in about a week, and he was going through the subway car. And he was looking at people and he was saying, you're in. You're out. You're in. But no. You're in. But no, you're out. And as he went through the car, you're in. Out. In. Out. The narrator told us it was really impressive to me how much it mattered to me when he got to me, how much I wanted this guy to say, you're in. This is the guy who was going home to sleep in a cardboard box. And it mattered to me. I cared whether that guy said, you're in, or you're out. Because we don't really like being judged. We particularly don't like being judged by somebody who's telling us that the judgment's from God. I mean, I don't know about how many of you have had this happen, but I know I've been stopped on a street corner with somebody I've never seen before with a wild look in his eyes and a crazy question. Have you accepted Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior? Okay, I think is there a form? Did I need to sign a card or something? Because I thought I had, but it sounds like there's a question about it. Or maybe, even worse, you've had somebody at a pulpit like this talking to you about, well, there are only certain members of this church who are going to be in, and some of you are going to be out. And heaven help those poor people who are not even here, right? Because that's what we think that last judgment's going to be like, right? You get that big painting on the Sistine Chapel, and Jesus is in the middle of it going, you are the people, you are the good people who followed all the rules and obeyed all the commandments and accepted me as your personal Lord and Savior, and you're going to the good place. And the rest of you, Lord help you. Well, not Lord help you. Somebody else is going to have to help you. But that's not what the reading today says. If you look at that reading, well, first of all, it starts with Jesus talking about the Son of Man. Now, we don't normally, we kind of let that kind of fall right over us. We don't think about that. But Jesus calls himself the Son of Man a lot. Not the Son of God, the Son of Man. And that's because the title Son of God was already taken. There was an emperor, after all. And the emperor styled himself as the Son of God. In fact, I think this particular one claimed to have been sired by Apollo himself. And so Son of God's already taken. So Jesus was the Son of Man. And Jesus did that to deliberately stand in contrast with the occupying force of Rome. Rome was an oppressive regime. The Jewish people had lots of rules, and we talk about them sometimes. Sometimes we get a little in the weeds about the ones about washing your hands and the ones about not eating this and not eating that. But in the middle of all those same rules were a bunch of rules about taking care of widows and taking care of orphans and making sure that the stranger in your midst was cared for and making sure that nobody was stuck in a perpetual cycle of poverty. If you've ever heard of the Jubilee, that meant that every 50 years, everybody's land came back to them, came back to the family that maybe sold it off. There were rules about not perpetually being in indentured servitude. Well, when Rome showed up, all those rules went away. You sold your property because you couldn't feed your family? Well, tough luck for you. If you still couldn't feed your family because you were a widow and you had no patrimony, well, I guess you were just going to have to go beg in the street. Rome didn't care. Rome was about Rome and making money for Rome. And so Jesus was saying, well, that's what the Son of God's doing over there. But if you want to be part of what the Son of Man is doing, if you want to be part of the humane person, then you've got to be humane yourself. You've got to help me out. You've got to work against Rome and its oppression. You've got to do these things. If I'm hungry, you've got to feed me. If I'm thirsty, you have to give me something to drink. If I'm naked, clothe me. If I'm sick or a prisoner, visit me. Because that's how we build a different kingdom. In fact, not even a kingdom. In fact, he uses the word in this gospel, inherit, which means this is a family, right? Just like Will said earlier. It's a kingdom. Some of the preachers around me like to use that word rather than a kingdom. A kingdom, a family. Because family looks out for one another. Family looks out for one another even when it's hard. Family looks out for us when we're not easy to love. Family loves us nonetheless. To paraphrase Robert Frost's words about home, you know it's family if when you show up there, they have to take you in. If you're family, if you're hungry, you get fed. If you're thirsty, you get something to drink. If you're naked, we're going to find you some clothes. If you're sick or in prison, we're going to come visit you. Because that's family. Now, fortunately for us, the Roman Empire is gone. Yay, really. And we're in charge. Right? It's a democracy. We all get to decide how this all works. Yay! Which means everything's perfect, right? Government's completely off our backs. Nobody's complaining this April about anything, right? Because government's off our backs, no problems. Everybody's being cared for. No one's caught in generations of poverty or systems of inequality, right? Wrong. It's not that easy. Even when we're the empire. We get comfortable, we get complacent, we get walled off. Some of us even literally build walls so we don't have to see what's around us, the people around us who are suffering. And we forget about the hungry and the thirsty. Let me give you an example from my own church. In fact, the fact that I was singing Do Something, reminded me of the last situation where I had to sing that song. We were doing a benefit. We were, in fact, gathering a whole bunch of people together. So not only did I sing Matthew West, I sang Bruce Springsteen in a church. Trust me, I was not ever expecting to do that. But we were talking about the people who grew our poinsettias for Christmas. It's a florist named Corsos. It's a big operation. It's kind of like Petites on this side of the town, just like greenhouses upon greenhouses upon greenhouses and tons and tons and tons of plants. And lots of people taking care of the plants. So I need you to imagine that you're in a barn, maybe about the size of this church, or one of those big greenhouses, and you've been called together because there's going to be a meeting and you're going to have coffee and donuts, and you know how that brings everybody running. So you're in there and you're having your coffee and you're having your donuts, and all of a sudden there are 200 ICE agents that have closed the doors and surrounded the perimeter. And if you have brown skin or brown eyes or a Latin surname, you're going on that side. If you have white skin, you're over here. They didn't even bother to check IDs because you could have a forged one. They just rounded up everybody who looked kind of Latino, put them on a bus for Youngstown to be ready for deportation. These are the people who grow our church's poinsettias. And not only were these people rounded up with no warning, I mean, I get it, you know, helicopters, dogs, all of it. This was early June, and so all of their children, some babies, were left at daycare centers, left with babysitters. No one to pick them up. No one even knows where their parents are. I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. And so we felt like we had to, well, do something. And fortunately for us, there was already a 16-year-old kid doing something. A young woman named Natalia Alonso, a young woman whose father had already had the experience of being deported, was now in the country legally. But she says, I know what those kids are going through. And she was able to be a liaison, to knock on a door of a trailer and not look like a scary person who was about to take somebody away. So they talked to her. And she said, what we need is food. We need baby food. We need diapers. We need lots of little tiny socks. You have no idea how fast people go through little tiny socks. We need formula. We need fortified milk. Can you help us? Well, of course we could. Of course we could, because that's what family does. And if they're growing your poinsettias for Christmas, if you're going to welcome the child Jesus, well, then you also have to welcome these children. So we sang our songs, and we raised some money, and we grabbed lots of people who were willing to bring in a lot of formula and a lot of other stuff, and it was a good time. And we did have people leave the church over it, rip up their checks and promise never to darken the doorway again. Now, some of them are back. I know for a fact because somebody came up to me that I thought had promised that they were gone last week to complain about something else. I'm like, oh, you're back. I've missed this voice. But they thought what we were doing was being too political. And I get it. It looks political, but it's not political, really. Every government, every system, left, right, center, I don't care. Every one of them has winners in the system and losers in the system. Everybody, all kingdoms are going to have people in them that need help. And Jesus came to tell us that we are not part of that system. We are supposed to grow the world into something better, better than a kingdom, a family. We just can't hang back in our churches and follow rules and believe all the things we're asked to believe and hope we're going to get in, right? Played a song I love. Let me tell you about a song I hate. There's a John Mayer song that was around like about 3 years ago, maybe more, called Waiting on the World to Change. Y'all probably have not heard this, but it went, waiting on the world to change. It's not that we don't care, we just know that the fight ain't fair. So we're just waiting waiting on the world to change. Some lovely gentleman strumming his little guitar and saying, don't worry about it. It's not your problem. You can't fix it anyhow. So just wait, eventually, the world will change on its own. No. If we want God's kingdom to come on earth, your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, then we have to make it happen. We have to do stuff. We have to care for the people who grow our poinsettias. Because somebody's coming eventually, whether it be Jesus or somebody else. There's going to be somebody who confronts us at some point, walking down the aisle of that subway car and saying, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was homeless and you opened your door. I was sick. I was in prison and you visited me. And we need to be ready for that moment of judgment. Thanks for listening.